I got my Monday regular guest, Cody Davis, back on, and I do have power. So, yeah, unfortunately, I had to cancel a couple of live streams this weekend. The islands are getting kind of hit hard with some storms. I know some places still don't have power, but luckily I got power back. So we are back live streaming. So it should be a fun one, though. So, Cody, I love that you always do these videos on Tuesday, Thursdays on your channel. But there's one that caught my attention. It was kind of the three keys to problem solving. And I like that your videos are short, quick to the point, but let's kind of dig into that one. So, you remember that video?
I do. You also gave me a good reminder before we started, so that helps. Yeah, the idea was that if you can identify what you want, you can put yourself out there and you can communicate effectively, you can go pretty far pretty quickly. So the three keys there were the communication piece, marketing, and knowing what you want. So what's the end goal? And then can I put myself out there, which is the marketing piece, whether it's the cold calls or the social media posts, the YouTube, whatever it is. And then can I communicate with those people when I actually reach them? That was the idea.
Yeah, I love that. I think so. Even this morning, just going back to the accountability call we kicked off from the school community early on this morning, I find a lot of people have goals or objectives for the week, and a lot of it is around calling and communicating with people, and then they decide on not doing it just because maybe they've changed course a little bit. So, like, some people want to dig into doing refinances, and now the rates have gone up. They're like, I'm not gonna call these lenders or talk to them, and I'm like, just call them, talk to them. There's always something to learn. You're gonna get different things from different lenders. So, is that something you do weekly also?
I have a well, that's something that you have to do, I would say. So I just did a refinance with the lender. The terms that were promised up front ended up changing. They had an underwriting flaw in their model and they had to add some more things in. And so my cash out proceeds got lowered a bit. And I still move forward with them to build the relationship. And now they're refinancing some of my other stuff and giving me even better terms. Rates went up and they gave me a better rate. So now I'm in the fives. So continuing to put myself out there and communicate my goals with them, it was really important. Even though rates went up, I put it out there and they're still getting it done. And they're doing it for a better rate somehow. So, but they just funded a loan for me and they're local. So there's a lot of trust there now. But if I didn't put my goals out there, I didn't communicate what I'm trying to do with those people, none of this would have happened.
Yeah, I find it also too. I hate to give credit to the Thursday breakthrough accountability call in school, but theirs is very structured, right? So they have like a format where you have like 1 minute to kind of talk about your problem or what you're working on. If you go past that, you get buzzed. But I like that because I think it kind of helps people really get comfortable trying to talk about their problem or what they need in a short amount of time. Right? So that 1 minute, it goes by quick, but it gets you in the habit of not wasting time and being able to communicate your situation quickly, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. You got to put yourself out there. If you don't do that, it's going to be a tough ride.
Yeah. So, like I said, I hate giving them credit, but I do like that format that they do have because, like I said, I think it's very helpful. Because sometimes I do find, people on some of the calls, sometimes they have a problem, but yet they kind of go in a circle trying to explain it, and they're almost like creating more problems when they are trying to explain it and trying to put that situation out there. But you say most problems can be solved through communication and marketing. Why do you think so many people overlook those two things, though?
Because marketing yourself is not fun and communication takes a lot of work. Not fun and a lot of work are not a good combination for a lot of people doing it. So that that's my thought there. But if it were easy and it was fun, everybody would do it.
Oh man, see, I gave credit and he's actually here. Alex, the accidental investor, is in the chat. So yes, he says, credit where credit is due. So yes, there he's one of the hosts for the Thursday call. So like I said, I hate giving them credit, but I definitely like how it is structured, and I think it does help people talk about their situations that they are working on. But the funny thing, even with like communication and marketing, and we're we are relating it to real estate and business, but I think it's just everyday general life situations, right? You're always trying to sell yourself to someone in some way, right? And you have to be able to market yourself, and even just communicate what you want. And I think that goes back to your point in your video too. Is kind of, you have to know what you want also, right?
You absolutely do. Yeah. And this can apply to anything. When I was in college, I was going to Tacoma Community College. I had to sell myself to the teacher. I had my real estate license. This was right before I dropped out, and this is one of the pieces that led to me saying this is stupid and leaving. The teacher said I wrote a paper about my business and failed me on the paper. I convinced the teacher that it wasn't about business and that illusions were, part of a good paper. And so I was alluding to my business, but I wasn't. She couldn't prove it. She just thought I was, and so she failed me. And then I passed after I convinced her. I knew what I wanted. I wanted to pass. I had to put myself out there in front of her, and then I had to effectively communicate my truth where it overpowered hers. And then I got what I wanted. But this is not just business.
Yeah, so Josh Burdick is saying he'll have to hop on that Thursday call. Like I said, it's definitely, like I said, it's very structured, but I think it's very helpful for people that are working on things, because it kind of gets you in the habit of getting to the point of what you are working on. And that kind of goes to the point of, sometimes do you think investors tend to look for complicated solutions when the answer is actually kind of fairly simple?
Agree.
Yeah. Also, in that in your video, you kind of talked about kind of going back to knowing what you want, right? So a lot of people make this journey about, and then the limitation is money, and they kind of revolve everything around, well, not having money, and that's what's holding them back. But do you think it's more the communication in some extent is what's holding people back?
The ability to communicate where they're coming from and where they're going, yeah, that would definitely hold you back. Because you probably don't have money for the same reason that other people don't. You haven't figured out how to get yourself in a position to own assets. So whether that's business or property or whatever it may be. So you have to communicate with people who have what you want, and to know what people have what you want, you have to know what you want. So it's kind of this circle. But the communication piece is way more important than the money. I feel like if that were not true, I wouldn't have been able to do what I did the way I built it. So I communicated with people who had what I thought I wanted, which was passive income. And they taught me how to do it, and I did it. Like, it wasn't rocket science, but I didn't have really any money. So that is repeatable, but you really have to hone in on these three things, because if you know what you want, you know who has it, because you put yourself out there, and then you can communicate with those people, you have a much higher chance of success.
So how would you explain what excellent communication is? Like,
Excellent communication involves a lot more listening than it does talking. It's not just sharing to fill the room, but sharing the right things at the right time. And you only get that from practice. And even when you practice, you still mess it up sometimes. I know I do. So it's going to come down to listening a lot, talking a little, not just sharing things if you only have one talking point. This was a mistake I made for a long time. I'd bring up a topic with someone who is really well off, and then they'd ask me to clarify my point, and I didn't have another talking point beyond that. I understood the surface level, but I didn't really understand any deeper than that. It was an idea that I heard. I see a lot of people doing that too. I really try my best not to do that, to engage in conversations I don't have any input on. So I listen until I can get enough info to put in, if I can at all. But effective communication is clear, concise, and involves thought out points.
To that point, I think part of that also too, haven't seen you here before, but thanks for stopping by. But Pete the Squatchy says having some kind of idea and asking questions is super important. So to kind of to your point too, maybe sometimes you brought something up and you only had the surface level information, and then you realize someone else is more knowledgeable. Now it's like you're saying too, you kind of got to be able to read the situation also now, and maybe now you're the one that's going to be coming up with the questions and asking certain questions in this situation. So that's another part of communication. It's not just talking about a subject matter, it's also being able to bring up questions to this person. Let's see. Have you ever solved a major business problem simply by having a conversation with the right person?
Majority of my business problems have come from talking to the right person. The hard part of being an entrepreneur, though, is who's the right person, and that's been difficult to figure out sometimes. There have been problems that I've had to spend a lot of time thinking about and figure out who could be the right individual to help me solve this. But it, even when you figure it out, you may communicate with them and they may not help you if you didn't communicate properly, which is why it's so important.
Yeah, I think that's the one of the things I kind of struggle with a little bit too also is who I'm getting information from, or especially now, even in like we kind of maybe we joke about it a little bit in the real estate space, or these gurus and people selling courses, and sometimes it's hard to know who's being true, I guess, to some extent. So when you're seeking out information, I think it's just everyone's a little hesitant to some extent, and that's also just like you're saying, communication and talking to these people and getting to know them better. And I think it, you know, it's over time, right? It's just constantly communicating, reaching out to these people, getting information. And the more and more you talk to them, then you'll get a better feel for if they fit what you're trying to get, or if you're going to take their information and run with it, or kind of be a little hesitant about it. Pete the Squatchy also says, yeah, when you're in the middle of it, it's tough to ask people. Oh, that's a great point too. Yeah, I think that's what's great about our community is that people are willing to kind of force people a little bit to ask questions, or seek out information. Right? It's not a group where everyone is judging everyone, and oh, you've made these mistakes, or you're failing at what you're doing, or your portfolio's not doing well, or why are you doing it this way. I think that's what's really good about our community is everyone is kind of willing to give some information and say, I may not know, but this is what I would do. And I think that's also the great part of what we're trying to do here. um
On that topic, it's very similar to the saying, the best time to get a loan is when you don't need it. Hardest time is when you need it. So yeah, when you're in the middle of it, it's tough. It can be very tough.
that is a great, so like I go kind of going back to how we started talking about the refi, and some people in the accountability calls talking about, when rates dipped a little bit, their initial thought was, I'm going to refi, I'm going to call these lenders. And this past week, a lot of world events happened and rates started going back up a little bit. They're like, no, it doesn't make any sense to talk to these lenders, right? And I wasn't yelling at Steven. I was working out, so maybe it sounded like I was kind of speaking loudly to him. But I was like, dude, you're retired. What better? What else do you have to do? You may as well talk to these lenders. And like you said, right? It's when you may not need to refinance, they'll be there. Or when you want to refinance, and it's easier to get these people to work with you because you've already built this relationship, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, so Pete says the same thing. Yeah, so when in the middle of it, we tend to try and protect how much information gets out. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yas. Ooh, what is this kind of dig on? Yasik says many times it's hard to separate emotions from logic. So how much do you think emotion plays in this, communication, marketing type of thing?
Ooh, that's a good question. I've seen a lot of business people, and I'm going to try and answer this the best I can. I've seen a lot of people get emotional in business and they make irrational decisions. They do things they wouldn't have done otherwise. It's okay to be emotional in business, but I would try and separate your big decisions from that. So if you have a big decision you have to make, I would try and push it out until you can think about it logically. Because I bought stuff based on the feeling and wasn't it wasn't the right decision.
Yeah, I definitely think it is, separating emotions from logic is a challenge for all of us. I think, it just comes with time and practice, and it does get hard. Sometimes it definitely emotions do get the best of us, and sometimes our mind starts running with situations, and it's hard to keep things simple a lot of times.
Yeah, and I think the question was talking about communication too, but I've definitely said things I should not have said.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've all been there, and I think that's part of it. The more you practice, or the more you just communicate and work on things, it does get easier, and it does um, hopefully get easier. Oops, oops. What
Bye,
happened?
Mark.
No, I'm back. I'm back. I'll move. Oh, hold on.
I didn't authorize a bathroom break. A
Yeah,
smoke break.
well, like I said, I'm just happy to have Wi-Fi, man. I didn't have Wi-Fi for I didn't have power for like 15 hours. Um, but Josh Burdick says, I'm good at communicating at my stick and bricks business, but man, I have a long way to go communicating in the real estate space. Older dog learning new skills is tough for me. I need to stretch that muscle. I think, just like anything, it is practice, 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 and Josh, I do see you on a lot of the calls, and yeah, you always jump in there with some of your feedback, and I think it's just like anything, right? It's not easy, and some of us maybe don't like sharing too much of what we are doing, and so I know that's part of it for some people, but it's just like Zuber talks about, like almost meeting two new people a week, right? Whether it's a realtor, another investor in your market, a lender, even somebody on social media, right? I mean, if you're trying to do this social media thing, it's just reaching out to, you don't know how many times I message people if they want to come on and you don't ever hear anything from them, right? I mean, but it's just practice messaging them and trying to communicate with them.
And
Um,
remember, when if you're not good at communicating on a subject, just focus on the goal. That's what I've always done, and it's something I've struggled with. Sometimes communication, it's like you got to communicate with your body to do the right thing. When I had the Robinhood, I had to get a wire from one side of the resort to the other. I didn't know how to do it, but I kept forgetting the goal. I was like, I just got to figure out how to get this over there. Can I move a little closer, and can I make it look pretty? And you just got to focus little steps. It's like, does this move me closer to my goal? And if you don't know your goal, it's going to be very hard. So back then, I wasn't doing anything because I was worried, I can't get it from here to there. I don't know what to do. I don't know what panel to take. And rather than just trying things that aligned with that goal. So if you know you want to get into apartments and you've never done it, is saying anything to someone who owns apartments going to be beneficial? And then, is saying something like this going to be beneficial, and having that conversation with yourself before you have the conversation with the other person? But it all comes back to your goal. If you don't know that, you're really not going to know if it's moving you closer or not.
I, Yasik, I was not yelling on the call today. I think my volume may have just been high on my microphone thing. Harrison says, love this topic. He's getting his property inspected today. Yep, he's under contract for his first property in Pittsburgh. He's in Ohio investing also, but also looking at Pittsburgh. Kyle Dorn says, remove the emotion as if it wasn't your problem to solve. I think that's very smart. Yeah, I think sometimes if you can take yourself out of the situation and as if you're maybe trying to help someone else figure out this problem, I think that's a great way to approach it. Alex, the accidental investor, says communication skills are life skills. They will help you in all areas of life. You know what? Let's stay right there real quick because Alex's son also attended the year three Vegas event, right? And I'm sure he's probably will be there for year four. And Zuber looks like he's going to focus a lot on trying to get 50 teenagers there. But how would you kind of um, talk to them about the importance of knowing what you want and communicating and even marketing themselves at this age?
Yeah, Michael and I are going to be talking about that. We're looking at creating a vision board where, well, the kiddos will create the vision board, but cutting out magazines, we're figuring out the logistics of it, but figuring out what they truly want, putting a visual to it, having a product so they can take home. That's the general idea right now. Because if you can't see it in your head, it's hard to really know. And so we're taking it out of their head and putting it onto poster board or paper or whatever it may be so that they can see it. They have to be able to really know it. And they may put it on the board and say, that's stupid. I've done that before where I mapped it all out and I was like, wait, that's dumb. What am I doing? But they think they want it until they see it all. And so we're going to map that out and then work with them to figure out what's the cost. This is the proposed idea right now. And once they know what the cost is, figure out what kind of business would it take? Who would I have to talk to? What would I have to do to go get it? That's the thought for day two. So day one, they build it, figure out what they want, put it on paper. Day two, let's build out a plan to actually go get it. And I think that will help them out with gaining clarity.
And for those of you listening, if you do have the Rich Dad Poor Dad Cash Flow board game, I think Zuber is looking for about 10 people to bring their board game with them. I think that's part of what he's having planned for the teenagers. And I think I see a lot of comments coming through people are hoping that he makes it to 21, I think, the age. So not just teenagers, and hopefully it can be up to like 21-year-olds.
That'd be
But
great.
I also put in Andy Lane Five's YouTube channel. Please go support him over there. He came out with another video on Sunday, but like yeah, like he's definitely one about, like I said, communicating, and he's putting himself out there. It's about faith, family, and fitness. So go check him out. And even Chris Wissing, he's doing stuff with his kids, and his son Logan was at the event. So another one that was one of the teenagers that attended, but they're doing videos about the rehab project that they're working on. Yep, Yasik says communication, just like any other skill, gets better with more repetition. And oh, let's I want to so Pete the Squatchy also says a simple plan gives more clarity, I think. But let's do you think people struggle with communicating what they want or actually knowing what they want?
Well, that's why I've been saying this for a long time. You got to know what you want. Most people don't. No one really spends enough time to think about what they want. Like I want 10 grand a month, and then I want a nice car, a nice house. It's like, well, 10 grand a month may get you those things. It may not. But what beyond the materialistic stuff? Because they only say the things that cost money, and then the money itself. So yeah, most people really don't know what they want. That is the hard part. But if you can figure that out, you have a very good chance of getting it. If you can't figure it out, you have a very good chance of not obtaining the goal.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think they know what they want, but when they, like you said, that's where the vision board is going to come into play, right? So they think they have this certain goal or lifestyle they're looking at, or they need this certain amount, and once they put it on the vision board and start breaking things down, they realize like maybe I don't need, like I think it was what they said, like $1 million or some, or one of the teenagers might have said that, I believe, at your guy the last event, and then you broke it down. It's like, huh, maybe I don't need that much. Adam will be 20, Alex is saying. Yeah, so I think I'm sure Zuber will be fine with it, but um, knowing is probably at the top for most. Yeah, most think they know. Yeah, exactly. Pete says a lot gets stuck at looking at what others have and lose reality in their focus. Yeah, definitely. I think. Would you say you struggled with that, seeing what others were doing or other people had in this journey for you?
Yeah, it's difficult when you look at people that show themselves as doing really good and then peel back the onion a little bit, their life sucks. I mean, I'm not saying that about anybody in specifics, but like there's a lot of people out there that look like they have it made. And so you switch strategies and then you realize, oh, there was a lot they weren't telling you. Because you only know what people tell you like, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And a lot
I
of people,
think, yeah. No, no, I was gonna just say I think that's kind of, Dion and Zuber, but Dion specifically, and I think that's where I kind of fall in, and maybe a superpower, but being lazy to some extent, where it's like I don't want to try something new. I don't want to pivot, even though these other people are being successful in another strategy to some extent, right? So, like I tell people, there's a lot of great markets out there, and maybe Pittsburgh is not the best, but there's other markets that are great, but I'm too lazy to do research on another market or pivot because what I have there is working, right? So and that's kind of, I guess, like my superpower to some extent. Yasik says that's why deeper conversations are where people start to see more clearly what they really want, not think. Yeah. Suck less. Let's say Kyle Dorn said, I know I'm terrible at articulating my thoughts into words. My brain runs faster than my mouth. And when I slow down, I forgot the first thought. Any suggestions? I know what I'm going to say, but he's laughing at the cat. My suggestion, Kyle, is you start a YouTube channel or come on these live streams more often. But I think that is helpful in being able to just practice communicating, talking about your situation, and just even these questions that come through, right? I think it's helpful just trying to answer them on the fly. And Cody jumps on here, and a lot of times we're he has the main topic to some extent, but as far as the questions go, he doesn't quite know what they're exactly going to be, right? But it's all about being able to communicate his thoughts, and I think he does a great job at that. But do you have any suggestions for Kyle?
yeah, it becomes a bad habit. I'm trying to break it, but it's helped me more than it's hurt me. So I will share it. When I'm having conversations with folks, you're trying to slow it down in your head. Well, I tried and I couldn't slow it down in my head. So when I'm communicating with other people, I'm usually having another conversation with myself. Keeps my brain occupied. So always multitasking on thoughts, but it's like I can't have two conversations at once, but listen to the piece. I'll think something else to myself and then have a thought on this and then respond. And it keeps your brain moving, but allows you to, you can keep having that conversation in your head while you're having a conversation with someone else. And that way you don't have to speak as fast as you're thinking. But that's helped keep me occupied. The problem is, though, if you do that too much, you can miss the talking point and have to ask again. That does happen on occasion too. You watch
That's
enough of my videos, it definitely comes up.
it's funny you bring that up because sometimes that's me and Brandon because we live stream on Tuesdays, me and Brandon, and a lot of times I'm trying to figure out the chat and other things, and he's talking, and then he goes, "What do you think about that?" And I'm like, "Man, I didn't even listen to like your last minute you were talking." um, but Steven says, you're right. Communication matters. I took your advice. Now I tell my realtor what I don't like about some properties instead of not responding. It should help focus my buy box for him. Yep, absolutely. Where was the next I saw? Do you think marketing yourself today is easier because of social media or harder because there's so much noise?
It's easier to put yourself out there. It's harder for that output to actually result in anything. Like you mentioned, there's a lot of competition. So just because you put yourself out there doesn't mean you're going to get anything.
Yeah, I think that's also why it's important if you can is kind of niche down. I mean, if you're um I there is people specifically in Pittsburgh that always reach out, because I'm kind of just focused on that market. I can see where you're talking about a lot of different strategies or different things. It'd be hard to really um, stand out to some extent because maybe people can't determine what you're really working on, right? Um, hey, Chris Webb is tuning in. Um, yeah, Yasik is gonna sell a course. Looks like for 9.99 about communication. Yeah, we'll get Kyle on. He wants to, or he has some stuff he's brainstorming on the back, so we'll figure that out. Um, hmm. So I think I know the answer to this, but um, was this through communication with other people or something you just, so have you personally changed what you wanted over time as your business grew?
As my business grew,
Yeah.
yeah, and a lot of that came from talking to other people, realizing what they had was more peaceful. I've got a buddy of mine who is doing the same thing that I was doing, just at a bigger level, and he's making so much money, but I don't know that his peace is any greater than someone who's built a portfolio like Dion. So it's like, which one do you want? And as the business has grown and I've talked to more people, what I've wanted has changed because of the conversations I've had with people who control their time, they've got enough money, and they have peace.
I think that's what's also super important about our school community is that it's not like one niche in a sense. It's
Yeah,
everyone kind of doing different things. So you're not kind of in this tunnel vision of only seeing, multifamily or bigger is better, and you're not only seeing creative finance, or you're not only seeing Airbnb, where sometimes maybe you're not seeing the big picture, right? So I think that's what's great because there is so many different strategies and people at all different levels. So it's kind of good to see where everyone's at and working on. Yasik does say, other thing people do a lot is assume instead of having a conversation or just simple ask. Oh yeah, I think that's a very important one. Yeah. So even like I hate bashing on Steven already because of the call this morning, but right, so the rates went up and he's just like, oh, I'm not gonna call these lenders and talk to them, right? He basically just wrote it off as getting, like I said, especially when maybe you're earlier in the journey, having these conversations with different lenders is super helpful because now you're just going to be better each time you talk to a different lender.
absolutely. You gotta ask. If you don't ask, you're not gonna get it.
See what happened. All Nighter Hider says, see what happens when I communicate that I'll be out of town. Nick goes and visits San Diego. Oh yes, yeah. Nick is in San Diego right now. He's traveling. So, yes. So we had to cancel our Bitcoin live stream, our weekly wrap up on Saturday. But Nick is traveling, and next Saturday we won't be able to go live also because he's going to be at March Madness. So he did a little post also on why you invest, right? And he's able to travel and do these things, and it's because his investments are paying for his lifestyle. Um, Kyle Dorn says, I like this topic. Do more of these. Well, I mean, I do my best coming up with topic. So I always, like I said, I love Cody's videos. So go check out his channel. He is also live streaming right now. So if you can go support him there. But he also live streams on Wednesdays with Justin Canberra. They go on at 8 a.m. Pacific also. But
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I gotta let him know this Wednesday. I can't. I'm taking my MLO test on Wednesday in Yakima.
Ah, okay. Well, yeah. So we got to remind, and just I had to cancel a live stream with Justin on Saturday also because I had no power. But we're gonna be doing that on this coming Saturday. Justin and Sabrina Maples. She's an agent out in Arizona, and she's also part of Thatch's program. Um, but yeah, I because Cody, he brings up a topic every Tuesday and Thursday, and he does short videos. So sometimes I feel like there's more to dig into there. So a lot of times we just kind of recap his videos. And going on that point, your other video was talking about a cash in, right? Refinance.
Oh yeah, that's lame. I have to write that check tomorrow or today. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, it is what it is. Have to write
So
a check to close the refi. Basically, I bought a property with two homes on it and some extra land, and I split off the extra land And because I bought the two homes with the value of the land, basically that land is worth 100 and maybe 120,000, 30 grand per unit for the if I do townhomes, and I'm working on building four of them. So I'm basically have that free and clear now, but that brings my LTV way up on the houses, so I have to buy down the debt in order to have that other parcel unencumbered.
Yeah, I think, you know, a lot of people should go check out that video, kind of get a better idea of why you're bringing cash to close. But it's kind of, sometimes that happens, right? And like you said, right, it is what it is. And, sometimes, what I think you said, it's moving the ball further down the field, though, right? It's kind of the way you put it.
Yeah, it is.
Steven says, I get it, guys. I'll make those calls. And Alex, like I said, the host of the Thursday call, we'll ask him about them on Thursday. Yeah. Um, what would you say if someone isn't getting opportunities right now? Is it fair to say they probably aren't marketing themselves enough?
Yeah, that could be it. You're not putting yourself in the right position. Good moves come from good positions. Seems to be true. So if you're not putting yourself out there or not connecting with people who can help you, you're not going to find a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think that's why Zuber is so big on starting, a channel or social media presence. And it's not about becoming an influencer or anything, or even trying to get monetized or what. It's just, um, you know, showing people what you're doing, and it's an easy. I think you talked about it before too, right? Was there lenders that found what you were working on your YouTube channel or something? Was that did you mention that before?
Yeah, that's helped out a lot. Putting myself out there. That's not necessary for others. But not to you don't have to do that to get a loan, but it seemed to help me on my commercial loans when I was getting started.
Yeah, I mean, not specifically loans, but I mean, even just like connecting you with, a contractor in your area or a handyman, or deals might come your way because somebody sees you're investing in a certain market, right? So, or even just like I said, it's just connecting you to another investor in your market who may have these contacts, right? So, I think it's super important just to kind of, let people know what you are working on. Kyle Dorn says more opportunities come from working on the right things than do 100 times X of it. Yeah, very true. I think that's super important. But now let's get into, like, do you think fear of rejection is what keeps people from solving their own problems?
I would just go back to if you don't know what you want, then the answer is yes, because that was a problem I faced that held me up from taking certain actions. So if the fear is greater than the desire to get what you want because you don't know what you want, then you're not going to do it. But there's a lot of people out there who know exactly what they want, and even though they're afraid, they still do it because what they want is worth it to them. Like when I put myself out there, I'm willing to look stupid. I'm willing to say potentially the wrong thing when I'm talking to people and be corrected. And I've been corrected plenty of times, and it helps me grow. And I'm willing to do that because I know what I want, and that's worth more than anything else to me. So, it's not going to hold me up. But if you don't really know what you want, you don't have the desire to go get it, then when you get afraid, things pop up. Yeah, you're not going to do it.
Yeah, I think definitely at your age is probably a lot more challenging. I think when you get to a little bit older, like myself, is sometimes you just really don't care already what other people think to some extent. So I think that's also why it's a lot easier for me to maybe just, not care, I guess, in a to some extent is the way I'm trying to put it. So yes, I'm not saying it's easy at all. Definitely over time you get better and worry less about what people think. But the sooner you can figure that out, I think it just definitely makes a lot of things easier. Oh, Gus brings up, yeah, what happened with Cody when he had that situation with a renter whose friend stayed over and then ended up kicking the actual tenant out? I remember him talking on Instagram about having to figure out how to evict them or get them out. Does anyone remember the story? Yeah, I remember
That
the story.
happened twice within a month. Two different properties, completely different locations. Very odd. Washington's weird. In one situation, the tenant told the cops that they kicked him out and they weren't living there, and so we were able to get them out. Great. The other situation, the tenant said, "Well, I was letting them stay over. I was trying to be nice." And now they don't have access to their apartment. All of their stuff is moved out. Talk about not knowing what you want. They didn't know what they wanted. They told the cops that they were letting them stay, and now they don't have an apartment and they're homeless. Sucks to suck, I guess.
All
I
right,
mean,
so
it's pretty cold, but I mean, it's just like that. That was so incredibly dumb. The way they put themselves in a terrible position, and now they don't have access to their apartment, and I'm evicting the other party now. Like, and they're getting named on the eviction too because they're on the lease. It's crazy.
well, your area seems to be getting a little crazy. It's forcing the richest homeless man right now, Dion. That's the he refers to himself as, right? He took over the name from Jason Hartman, who I guess bought a primary residence now. So now Dion is the richest homeless man.
Yeah.
Uh,
On that note, a lot of people are leaving the state. I'm continuing to buy here. So I'm working on buying a 12-plex right now. That's right next to my 13 unit. So the gentleman's out of the country for another couple weeks, and then we're going to work on going mutual. We have a pre-negotiated price. Working on buying a 20 unit, potentially 24 unit. So while people are leaving, I'm continuing to double down.
yeah, and I think it goes back to you knowing what you want, right? I mean, I think you have this vision of your lifestyle and what you want, and um, you're fine with being in Washington, and that's for you that works. Others for whatever reason, Dion is fed up and it's time for him to move on, and he knows what he wants, and I think that instead of going back and forth, right, and making it harder than it has to be, he's made his decision, and it goes back to just like you said, it's we got to know what we want, and it makes things a lot easier. Um, Chris Webb is saying, how many people are looking for you to define what they want? How many people are looking for you to define? I'm not quite sure how many people are looking for you to define what
I
they want.
mapped some stuff out a while ago, and people work with you based on the goals that you share. That is something that I found to be true. So if you don't know what you want and you don't share it, people may meet with you, but they're probably not going to work with you.
Okay, I get. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I'll relate that to even a lot of the accountability calls that go on weekly. Sometimes people come to the calls, and every week it seems something different or different thing strategy they're working on, and it's kind of hard to maybe guide them a certain way or give your input because you're really not sure also kind of what their end goal or what they're trying to get from the situation. So I think that's definitely makes a lot of a great point of defining what you want. Kyle Dorn making me do math here real fast. So fear comes from not knowing the fact. Reframe the why you have fear. 4 out of 5 things you do will be wrong and or fail, but that also means you win 1 out of 5 things you do. Multiply the 5 things to win. Well, I'm gonna I'm gonna always relate this to baseball. They always I think they talk about how to be in the Hall of Fame almost before. If you had a 300 batting average for your career, you would pretty much be an all-star Hall of Famer, and for your career. And batting 300 means you fail 7 out of 10 times, right? So you only succeed, 3 out of 10 times basically, and that's how challenging that game is. But you know, I think I relate that to kind of what Kyle's saying is a lot of times you are going to fail, but it's not how many times you fail. It's just you're multiplying the wins, right? How many times you do win. So you have to put yourself out there and you know get yourself in the game. I guess if the way I want to put it. Um, Kyle Dorn. Oh, Yasik has a side business, maybe making stickers. It says "sucks to suck" or "suck less." And Charles says "sucks to suck like it." Um, Yeah, Yasik says people invest everywhere, and some are successful there. No right or wrong. Yeah, and I think that's to Cody's point, right? That you're doubling down in Washington, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that make money because others are exiting, right? And there's going to be people that win there, and there's no right or wrong. And you're comfortable living there, and you have your reasons, and yeah, no right or wrong. Um, Buildy Bunch looks like coming from your channel. Thanks for stopping by. I haven't seen you before, but it says, how do you manage risk and your goal? Oh, great question.
Yeah, I map things out and just I have to make a decision in real time if it moves me closer or further away from my goal. And part of the risk management in the business that I'm in is access to capital and the timelines associated with that money. So if I have a need, like I'm writing a check to close my refi, that LLC will be broke. It's closer to my goal of building, but that LLC itself will be broke. So it moves me forward. However, it adds a tremendous amount of risk because I have years and years worth of mortgage payments in the bank right now, and all of a sudden I'm going to go to none. I have to rebuild it. So part of managing the risk of still moving forward towards the goal is I have to adjust pieces. So I'm probably the money that I'm paying down, I'm allowed to have a second mortgage once it's refinanced. I'll probably get a small second mortgage for the amount I had to write a check for. And it'll be what it'll be. But now I'll have 40-year fixed rate debt and I'll have cash in the bank. So you just have to keep adjusting your pieces. You have to be proactive. And, as things change, if the goalposts shift, you'll start shooting towards a different direction. But you got to manage in the real estate business your cash flow, your liquidity, and your net worth. Because your net worth you can borrow against as long as you have cash flow. So you just got to manage those three things. And as they shift around, as long as you're moving towards your goal and you can balance those three things, more often than not, you'll be able to manage the risk. The problem is where people are too weighted towards one of those or two of those and they lack in the other. So they have a huge net worth and a lot of cash, but they have negative cash flow. Eventually you lose. Or if you have a lot of cash flow, but you have next to no net worth based on how you negotiate your deals, you did super high leverage and you don't have cash and you have capex and excess of your cash flow, then you lose. You need to balance the three of those to go closer to your goal.
I want to go in so many directions on this one. I mean, part of what you said also in that video, I think you said but I don't know how I want to how you phrased it, but you were basically saying you move money into equity, right? I think so even though you are bringing cash to close, it's basically now just equity, I think, in the deal you said, right? So yeah, you've lost some liquidity, but it's not as if you just lost money, you're saying, right? You put it
Right.
into the deal, right?
And the objective was not to lose liquidity. The objective was to hold on to that, borrow more money, and let it ride. But appraisal came in lower than it should have for that property type, and so we have to write a check. The stupid thing is we can get a second mortgage post close. They just want to be in first. So I'm like, okay, well, we can write the check and then we can just get it back.
Yeah, I
It is
think
what it
that.
is.
Yeah, I think, but I think a lot of people would probably be, oh yeah, I failed, or I've lost money on this because I have to bring money. So I think it's also how you frame things, and like you're saying, you just now you got equity in that deal, right? Or you moved that money to here. Yeah, you lost some liquidity, but now it just like you said, it moved the ball down further down the field, and now I got to just readjust the pieces slightly. Um, shoot, what were we just talking about? Shoot. Okay. Oh, I know. Yeah. How do you manage risk and your goal? I think a lot of times I kind of same thing. I think a lot of people probably heard about it, right? It's kind of um, approaching things or being like bamboo, right? Bamboo is very strong and it's very hard to break, but it's also very flexible in its things, right? So it has, it's not a tree that is rigid and easy to break to some extent, right? Is because it's set in its ways. So I think that's the importance of managing risk and your goal. As long as you know that goal, managing risk is being, flexible and being able to move the pieces around, like Cody said. Hey, Janelle's tuning in. Morning, Janelle. Um, yeah, I think anything else you want to talk about? I think this was a good episode. A lot of people got a good takeaway from it. Let me see. Any? Ooh, I think you kind of touched on this, but what problem are you personally working on solving right now using kind of your communication, marketing, and knowing what you want?
Liquidity right now. So banks, I'm working with two in particular. They have their idea of what fits their program. I have a goal of getting money, and so I'm trying to effectively communicate my objectives to them so that we can expand their program a little bit to fit what I'm trying to do. And that takes putting yourself out there, knowing what you want, really knowing what you want, and then negotiating hard to go get it. Because it's still a benefit to them. They're going to get their paycheck, but I'm trying to get them to conform to my model rather than shifting my model to them, because we can build a big business if we are both on the same page.
Um, Anthony, tuning in from your channel, says, I love hearing about you doubling down in Washington.
Yeah, Anthony's awesome. So he bought a place in Puyallup, and I heard it's going well. I was just looking at my last text with him. I think he's got some pretty solid rent bumps. Having fun with the 14-day pair vacates. That happens in Washington, but talk about a cool deal. So bought it seller financed as well. So that's pretty neat.
Ah, very cool. Yeah, I think like back to Yasik's point, every market, right? Someone is probably making money. Whether it's blue state, red state, whether there's landlord friendly, tenant friendly, someone is probably making money there, right? And you just have to, like you said, I think it comes down to knowing your goals, what's your plans, and you kind of work it around that, right? I mean, because some people don't want to invest remotely, right? And if your goal or plan is to raise a family possibly down the road, or have a family in Washington, right? Then it may make sense more for you to invest in your backyard, right? Whether it has its own issues, right? So, yeah, I think it's, like you said, it goes back to just knowing what you want, right?
Yeah, that's why I'm trying to get even bigger. So I'm doubling down in Washington so that there's going to, most people are good people. That's the bottom line. There's going to be less than desirable individuals, but most people are good people. So if I can have more apartments that are better than the current quality I own today, then I'll have enough money to pay for the issues with Washington State. I'll get to write the check. And so the stuff going on in Washington is a reason that I should scale up because I still like owning here, which is unfortunate. But it's just what all is going on. It's like, oh, I guess I got to scale a little bit, so I have more money to throw at those problems because there's definitely problems in the state.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I think that is also, what a lot of people maybe overlook is, people want to always talk about money, maybe being greedy, or people being greedy with having money and things like that. But it's not even about being greedy for the most part, right? It's money does solve a lot of these problems in the world, right? Whether it's your living conditions, health things. So having money makes like life just a lot easier and more manageable, right? So I think that's what ultimately most of the people in our community is striving for, right? It's not being greedy or anything. It's just wanting to be able to live a certain lifestyle. Yasik says, even in New York City, people are making money with real estate with the best mayor. Yeah, well, yeah, we'll see how long a lot of them stay there. It is interesting, though, what's going on out there. But yeah, any final words, man? Anything else you got going on this week? We got to remind Justin Camber, right? So you won't be live streaming on Wednesday.
Yeah, I texted him. I was asked if he's good for Thursday.
Cool. If everyone, like I said, I'll be back tomorrow with Brandon Potts, same time, my regular Tuesday guest. And anyone else, if you want to jump on Wednesdays with Joe and Lauren, we're bringing on different school members every week. So this week, the one and only All Nighter Hider will be joining us. So it's been a while since he's been on my channel. So he'll be on Wednesday. Everyone sees him commenting and supporting in the chat. So now you get a chance to maybe ask him some questions to get a little better understanding of who he is. But yeah, thanks for doing this, Cody, man. It's always fun, man, catching up.
You bet.
All right,
See you
man.
next week.
Everyone, bye.